Hey everybody, it's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at the Bowery Ballroom, and today we are here with Jonathan Davis of Conan.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, you get that a lot.
Ready?
Yeah, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, FYI, that was scripted into this interview.
Yeah. Perfect. Delivery.
Yeah, but it's so awesome to have you here. So you're well into the record cycle for Existential Void Guardian, and the record is absolutely awesome. Can we just give a rundown on how the making of the record's been and everything?
Yep. Well, we recorded it at our studio, Skyhammer Studio, like we did with Revengeance and Blood Eagle. And the difference this time was we wrote and recorded the album in quite a short space of time, which is like a slightly different approach for us. Normally we take much longer, but somehow we managed to pull it off, and the album sounds great. And I think it sounds great because of how much pressure we were under to write it quickly. I think we were really efficient in the writing process, and the songs are really cool. A couple of the songs came together over just like a couple of tries, and it was Johnny's first recording with the band, and like we came off tour, and we basically went to the studio and recorded drums within a few days of Johnny and us landing after touring at Monolord. And then the following weekend we come back and recorded the whole thing, and then Chris mixed it over the course of the next few weeks and months. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it come together.
Yeah. You mentioned that there was like a lot of pressure with this. Did the pressure at all maybe influence the outcome of the overall sound of the record?
Maybe not the mixing itself, because that bit took time like normal. But the actual writing of it was different. Like a lot of the songs just sound quite like earlier Conan material to my ears, and Johnny's drumming sounds a lot like Paul's drumming used to sound when he was in the band. So I think somehow we've like created this album which for me sounds like quite a direct descendant from Horseback Battlehammer, maybe even Blood Eagle. And I really love it. Somehow the songs just came together so well without really having much of a run up at it.
Yeah.
That's what was unusual.
Yeah. You've compared this to your other albums. So does Conan like to stick with like a certain formula, kind of like a AC/DC sort of thing, like leave fans knowing what to expect and work with a certain sound? Or is there ever any experimentation or taking a new approach with the making of each album?
Well, I think we like to, maybe not really an approach in terms of the recording process, but in terms of the writing process, certainly we like to mix things up a bit. You know, we want to evolve from album to album. We don't set out to evolve in any particular way, but somehow we seem to pull it off with each album, where like each album kind of delivers what people would expect and then a lot more. And that's something which we've always wanted, but like there's no real way of making sure you do that aside from just being able to do it. Like we've been able to do it without really saying, oh, let's be different in this way or that way. It just kind of happened. I mean, I think we've been really lucky in that way. I think changing the lineup every now and again has helped that. You know, with Johnny being there, he's a different drummer to Rich, so he was always going to be a different drummer than a different drum style than we had on Revengeance, and in turn Rich was different to Paul, so his style made Revengeance stand out from Blood Eagle and the other albums before that. So I think it's only natural when a band releases a lot of music like we do. You know, if you're having like a lineup change every now and again, it definitely contributes to like an apparent evolution in the sound.
Yeah.
And some of that's to do with the personnel involved.
Yeah, you could tell sometimes when a band goes through a lineup change, like whether it's very obvious, like a Killswitch Engage, you could tell one's Howard, one's Jesse, but even like when you get like a new guitar player, like when Ozzy goes from Randy Rhoads to Zakk Wylde, like you could still hear a signature sound with that. I think that is really prevalent in you guys as well.
Yeah, you can't change too much because you are what you are, you know, and obviously me being like the main songwriter, the songs always have a certain path to them. You know, they've always got a certain direction, which is what obviously I guess I bring. And then the other members, like Chris has been around now for a couple of albums. He brings a certain sound to our songwriting, and then just to cap it all off, Johnny's done what he's done, and you know he's brought his own signature style, which it reminds me of Paul in a lot of ways, and then also he has his own style on top of that. So I guess we've like a mixture of those things has helped us stand out a little bit somehow.
Yeah, definitely. Now, is there in the songwriting process a preconceived idea that you like to tend to work off of, or is there like some improvising involved, and do things kind of happen like more organically?
No, improvising definitely is definitely the way we go on most of the songs. On this album, we basically sat down with the recording equipment all plugged in and ready to go, and we just jammed together in the studio, and that's how almost all of the songs came together. Like I've said before, the song Volt Thrower, Chris went to the studio, went to make us all a cup of tea, and then he come back from the kitchen, and me and Johnny had already written Volt Thrower together, and it took us 5 minutes. Wow. Just like I said, oh yeah, play along to this, and before you know it, the song was done. And we had a similar thing at Incantation, where it just started playing really fast, and then the track just happened. So we recorded it one more time, and that was what was on the album. So we didn't waste a lot of time.
That's always good. Time is, especially in music, it's very...
It's of the essence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm really curious about, I just started incorporating this into interviews. When you're recording an album and making an album, and then you're bringing it to the live presence, are you trying to execute the material live as much as it sounds on the actual album? Or for your listeners, do you try to make your live presence maybe a different experience than if they were listening to you?
I'll be honest with you, I don't really think about it that much, really, to be honest. The sound, we like to sound live the way we do on record, so we use the same equipment more or less, and I mean, I guess we want the recorded output to sound like it's got the same sort of energy and impact as like a live show, but it's always going to be difficult to portray that in a recorded format. And live, I wouldn't say we're like a particularly crazy, energetic band like maybe, I don't know, Pantera would call themselves in the past and stuff like that. I think we do quite well to sound as heavy live as we do on record. That's what we want to try and do mostly, is to bring that sort of like brutal heaviness that Chris has managed to bring on record. And doing that live is all to do with the sound guy, really. We bring the same gear and we play the same way, but it's down to the sound engineer to recreate that once we give them our technical specifications on the day of the show.
Yeah, awesome. And I have two more questions for you. Coming from Liverpool, England, I've interviewed a lot of bands from the UK. While She Sleeps, I interviewed Shapes. I've interviewed like a lot of great up-and-coming bands. Puppy, a great new band.
Oh, yeah. I know them, yeah.
Yeah. So, is there like a scene? I mean, Liverpool. I mean, obviously the home of the Beatles. But like, is there like still like a metal scene in Liverpool that you guys are kind of involved in, or do you tend to like to go outside of your hometown more?
Yeah. There is. There's a scene in the UK, and that will spread out to each individual city naturally. But I wouldn't say Liverpool's got a particularly interesting scene of its own. There are some cool bands from Liverpool, like you would expect, but it's not like the Bay Area or Seattle or whatever. You wouldn't. I don't think anyone will be writing books about it anytime soon. But yeah, there are some great bands, and it's a very like artistic city. So there are lots of. It's very supportive of the arts. I think there's a lot of practice rooms and stuff. There's lots of scope for bands to grow and to play live. Plenty of cool venues and that. But yeah, I wouldn't say the Liverpool scene is remarkable in any way, apart from it just having some awesome bands.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
And the final question I'd like to ask you is, and it's my favorite question to ask every artist, how do you know when a song is finished? And I think being that you have songs that range between 5 minutes and 8 minutes and so on and so forth, I'm curious to is there like a pinnacle moment where you say to yourself, this song is done, we don't need to add or take away from it anymore?
Well, very often we'll record a song and put on record, and then when we go and tour with it live, we don't often tour and play songs first. Normally we'll have it recorded and then we'll maybe start showcasing the album then. And often we'll know a song is done once we've been through that process. So it's almost like the recorded version sometimes isn't the finished version of the song, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there are certain songs now live which are slightly different to how we recorded them, and that's just the way it's transpired. So yeah, often in terms of being in the studio, when do we realise it's finished? I think we basically all just know. You can tell. People talk about getting goosebumps or whatever. That does happen quite a lot. But I think you can just tell when a song's ready.
Yeah.
It's like, will this work live? Normally the answer is yes, and then that's it. Then you kind of just record it and move on.
Yeah.
I think it's important to know when to move on. That's something that we've learned over time, is like not to push the saw too hard. It's like cutting through wood. If you're trying too hard, you often take much longer to get anywhere. And when we're writing songs, we kind of we're not like really hard on ourselves. It's like, does that work? Is that okay? Yeah, great. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
And we just kind of know.
Yeah, knowing when to move on, because sometimes if a song is missing something, you could always add stuff into it. But if you totally overkill and add too much to a song, I mean, it could, so that's adding too much is just as bad as adding too little. I feel.
Yeah, and if we ever add too much, then Chris is always there to cut certain parts of it from the recording.
Yeah.
In the mixing process. That's been done before.
Okay.
In fact, on our new album, a couple of the songs are cut down a little bit to make them more effective, which meant the label were unhappy about the length of the album, which it's like, well, we can't win.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just kind of know. And Chris is the fail-safe if we ever have to make any amendments.
Yeah.
once the tracking's done.
Yeah. I feel like you need to do a checklist. Okay, we love the album. Label's cool with it. Some people hate it. Our fans love it. There we go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Once you've ticked all those off, you're ready.
Exactly. So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Obviously, you're doing this tour right now with Black Label Society and the Atomic Bitch Wax. Is there just anything else you would like to promote in terms of tours or new music? This will be uploaded by midnight, so please don't talk about any tours that are happening in like 2022, like some bands have.
Well, we got a show. We got some festivals coming up in Europe, and then we're back here in June, July actually, and we play. We're doing some East Coast shows then, and we've got another European tour in October, and depending on when this is released, we've actually got a show coming up, which is unannounced as we talk here. On the 10th of this month, so just in a few days' time, at St. Vitus in New York. That's like a surprise show, which will be announced in tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So maybe this video will come out then, and it can be announced a show at the same sort of time.
Okay. Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
That's when you can announce it.
Yep. That's it. We can announce it after we've played tomorrow, apparently. So. Which we have to respect that. That's the rules in terms of the contract that we have on this tour. We can't play show or announce shows close
Radius
to where
clause or something.
Yeah,
like
totally.
That.
And we completely understand that. So we have to stick to that rule. But yeah, we're excited to play St. Vitus.
Awesome, and you guys are always welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, John.
Thanks a lot.
Everybody, John of Conan. Be sure to pick up Existential Void Guardian if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.